During an argument, my wife casually confessed she cheated, thinking I'd forgive her because she was just emotional. Instead, I filed for divorce the next morning. Now she's losing everything, her family has turned on her, and she finally realizes the price of destroying a faithful husband. Hello Reddit I+ here. When I think back on the night everything fell apart, it still amazes me how something as simple as a disagreement about money turned into the unraveling of my entire life. My name is Grant, I am 34, and until recently, I thought I understood the person I married better than anyone else ever could. I thought our life together was stable, healthy, and anchored in trust. I thought a lot of things. My former wife is named Rena. She is 32 and works as a communications coordinator for an outdoor recreation brand. We met right after college, married 2 years later, and spent almost a decade building what I assumed was a durable marriage that would last until we were old and gray. We were the type of couple people pointed to during holiday gatherings and said they hoped their children found someone they loved as much as we clearly loved each other. At least, that is what I thought. Her family adored me. My parents treated her like she was their own daughter. We had intertwining friend groups, shared holidays, and a level of partnership that felt steady and predictable. Our arguments were rare and short-lived. She was the fiery one, emotional and quick to react, while I was calmer and tended to think through every step before acting. We balanced each other, or so I believed. Everything began to shift on a Thursday afternoon in late spring. We had been house hunting for months, eager to upgrade from our modest condominium to something with enough space for a future family. We had saved carefully for years. I had been diligent with our finances, tracking every bill and adjusting our budget to keep us moving toward our goals. Rena liked to joke that I was born with a calculator where my heart should be, but she said it with affection. I thought she appreciated that side of me. When we found a property in a quiet neighborhood near the lake, she fell in love instantly. It was charming and spacious, filled with bright windows and trees that cast soft shadows across the yard. It was also extremely expensive, sitting at the very top of what we could reasonably afford. I suggested we hold off and wait a few more weeks to see if something more practical came on the market. She wanted to put in an offer that same day. It started as a calm discussion. She said opportunities like this did not last. I said our finances needed more breathing room, especially with our plans for the future. She said I always played it safe. I said she was acting impulsively. Slowly, the temperature of the conversation heated until both of us were raising our voices. She accused me of stifling her, of always prioritizing stability over happiness. I accused her of losing sight of our long-term future for the sake of one pretty house. It became circular, repetitive, fueled by frustration rather than logic. Eventually, I felt myself nearing the point where I would say something I regretted. I suggested we take a break from the argument and revisit it after cooling down. I packed a small bag and went to stay with my cousin, thinking space would help us find clarity. That night, I believed everything was fine. Temporary. Fixable. We had fought before. We always made up. We always returned to each other. But when I came home the next evening, the atmosphere felt off before I even stepped inside. The living room was spotless, the lights were dimmed, and Rena stood in the doorway with eyes that were swollen from crying. Her hands trembled. She rushed to hug me, whispering apology after apology. Something was wrong. Very wrong. We sat at the kitchen table. She clasped her hands together so tightly her knuckles turned pale. She told me she had something important to confess. Her voice was thin and shaky. She said she had gone out with 2 coworkers after our fight and had been venting about the things we argued about. She said she was upset, overwhelmed, and drinking more than she should have. She said she started talking to some guy at the bar and that she was so lost in her emotions that she made a mistake. Then she told me she had slept with him. She said it in a way that made it sound like the mistake was something that simply occurred rather than something she decided. She said she was angry. She said she felt unheard. She said she did not realize what she was doing until it was too late. She said it meant nothing. She said she regretted it before it even ended. She said she knew I would understand, that she had been emotional, that she had not been thinking clearly. She said she was telling me because she loved me. And that was the part I still have not forgiven. Not the infidelity itself, although that destroyed something fundamental inside me. It was the way she seemed to believe her reasoning would soften the blow, as if heartbreak is less sharp when someone cheats out of anger rather than desire. As if betrayal done from spite is somehow gentler than betrayal done from passion. When she finished talking, she stared at me as if waiting for me to exhale and tell her everything would be fine. Instead, I asked her one question. I asked whether she would have told me if her guilt had not eaten at her. Her eyes flickered, her lips parted, and she hesitated. Only for a second. But it was enough. The truth was right there in that hesitation. If she could have hidden it, she would have. That was when something inside me snapped in the quietest way possible. Not into anger or heartbreak. Into clarity. I told her I wanted a divorce. Her expression shifted into shock so quickly it looked painful. She began crying again, this time hysterically. She insisted this was a mistake, something we could work through. She said she was emotional, that I had pushed her away with my temporary absence, that she needed comfort, and made a foolish choice. She said she loved me. She said she would go to counseling. She said she would quit her job. She said she would cut contact with everyone involved that night. She promised everything she could think of. I listened quietly, calmly. I felt hollow, as if part of me had stepped outside my own body. The love I had for her, the certainty I had in our marriage, the trust I believed we shared simply evaporated. Not into something dramatic, just into nothing at all. I packed another bag and returned to my cousin's home. I contacted a lawyer the next morning. The following weeks were a blur. Rena cycled through apologies, pleading, and anger. She could not understand why I was being so firm. She said I was giving up on her. She said I was cold and punishing her. She said I was choosing pride over love. She said it was only one mistake. Her family entered the swirl of chaos soon after. Her mother cried on the phone, insisting Rena had acted out of hurt and that I had a responsibility to give her another chance. Her father tried to convince me that long marriages survive moments like this. Her brother sent a text accusing me of being heartless. I remained polite, but firm. I reminded them that trust was not something that could be patched with sympathy. My family supported me. My cousin emphasized that the way she handled conflict showed who she really was when things became difficult. He said I deserved someone who turned toward me, not someone who ran to the nearest stranger. Rena kept reaching out. Letters, flowers, long emails, tearful voicemails where she said she could not imagine life without me. She said she had destroyed everything and needed me to help her rebuild. She said she was falling apart, but I did not bend. A month after filing, the situation became more complicated. Rena began telling her own version of the story to anyone who would listen. In her version, I was the controlling partner who refused to consider her dreams. The fight was massive and traumatic. She was devastated and emotional and made one regrettable choice. And according to her, I abandoned her without even trying to fix things. People began reaching out, some gently, some angrily, all of them with only half the story. The truth is far less dramatic. I did not abandon her. She abandoned us the moment she walked into that bar, and she did it for nothing more than temporary anger and bruised pride. About 6 weeks after I filed for divorce, and by then, the situation had spiraled far beyond anything I expected. What started as a heartbreaking private moment had become something Rena was actively reshaping into a story where she was the victim of a cold, unforgiving spouse. The more people believed her version, the more dramatic her retelling became. The first real fallout came from our shared friend group. We had been close with another couple, Theo and his partner Marley. We traveled together, celebrated birthdays together, spent winter holidays exchanging small gifts. When I stopped responding to group texts, Theo reached out asking what was going on. I told him the truth, word for word, without embellishment. He replied with stunned silence, and then a short message saying he needed time to process before choosing sides. A few days later, he sent another message saying it was not about taking sides at all. He said he believed me, but that Marley felt pressured by Rena to defend her since they worked together. He said the group was splitting. Some believed me, some believed her, and some believed both of us in different ways. That was the moment I understood how deep the consequences of her decisions would run. Not just for her, for me as well. Through all of this, I kept my distance. I poured my energy into work, trying to stay as productive as possible so I would not spend every night replaying her confession in my mind. I stayed with my cousin for a while, then moved into a small rental on the outskirts of town. It was quiet and comfortable, the kind of place where nothing dramatic could ever happen. I needed that. Meanwhile, Rena ramped up her efforts to make me return. She sent long, emotional emails that shifted in tone from regretful to angry to nostalgic. One message described the first meal we ever cooked together. Another message begged me to remember the vacations we took. Another accused me of being heartless for ignoring her attempts to fix things. Another insisted she could not survive the humiliation she felt if the divorce went through. I read them only once. Then I archived them, My lawyer advised me to remain formal and brief in all communication with her. I did exactly that. Every message I sent was short and polite. Never hostile, never emotional, just factual. Something like, I received your message. Here is the next step. Please send this document when you can. It was the only way to stay sane. Around this time, her parents reached out again. Her mother asked if we could meet for coffee to talk things through. I agreed, not because I owed her anything, but because she and I had once been close. She had treated me with love and respect for years. I thought the least I could do was hear her out. We met at a quiet cafe. She looked exhausted, like she had aged 10 years in 2 months. She said she understood I was hurting, but she did not understand why I was unwilling to attend counseling before finalizing the divorce. She said couples could come back from things like this. She said she hated seeing her daughter break down every night. I listened patiently. When she finished, I told her something I had not told anyone else. I said that trust for me is not something I rebuild. Once shattered, it simply stays broken. That is how I am wired. I said I respected her, but that my decision was not emotional revenge. It was final, permanent. Something in her expression softened then. She nodded and said she hoped I would find peace. I said I hoped her daughter would too, but not with me. After that conversation, Rena's tone changed again. Her emails turned desperate. Her texts became more frequent. She sent voice messages at 3 in the morning, sometimes whispering, sometimes crying, sometimes sounding furious. My lawyer eventually told me to block her entirely and communicate only through legal channels. One afternoon, I got an unexpected call from my own mother. She had spoken to one of Rena's aunts, who had repeated the warped version of the story. My mother asked me to explain everything in detail. I did. When I finished, she simply said, I am proud of you for staying true to yourself. She said she knew I would not have walked away unless something fundamental had been destroyed. Her support meant more than I realized. By the time we reached the property division stage, Rena began to realize the gravity of what she had done. She asked for reconciliation again, this time calmer and more composed. She said she was in therapy now. She said she understood the root of her behavior. She said she had been holding on to unresolved insecurities since childhood. She said she was ready to face them. She said she wanted to rebuild, even if it took years. But the truth is, emotional growth does not rewrite the past. It does not erase betrayal. It does not reinstate trust that was carelessly thrown away. The last time we spoke face to face was during a mediation session. She looked fragile, almost hollow. There was a moment when she glanced at me with an expression I once knew well, an expression filled with hope that I might change my mind. I saw the version of us that could have existed if she had chosen differently that night, and I felt nothing. No love, no anger, no longing, only certainty. She whispered, "Can you forgive me? Not can we try again? Not can we rebuild? Just, can you forgive me?" I answered honestly. I said forgiveness is not the same as reconciliation, and reconciliation is not the same as trusting someone with your life again. I said I could forgive her one day, but I would never trust her again. And without trust, there is no marriage to return to. Her shoulders fell. That was the moment she finally accepted that our story was over. The divorce was finalized 2 weeks later. Since then, Rena has been dealing with the fallout of her actions. Her own family has turned cold toward her. Her friends are divided. Some believe she made a terrible mistake. Others think she destroyed something beautiful out of childish impulsiveness. At work, rumors spread faster than truth. She told them her own version, but people talk, and word eventually traveled. As for me, I have been rebuilding, piece by piece. My life is quieter now, more peaceful. I spend evenings reading, running, or cooking. I feel lighter, like someone who has come through a storm and stepped onto dry land. The truth is, betrayal changes you, but survival changes you too.